Great. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining today for our virtual field day on the Home to Market Act and cottage foods in Illinois. I'm really excited to have our speakers here today to share their expertise on this. We have some wonderful speakers who have all had a really important hand in getting the legislation through and getting this wonderful environment we have for cottage foods in Illinois. Today we have Molly Pickering, Deputy Director of the Illinois Stewardship Alliance. We also she's going to share with us about the Home to Market Act and about cottage foods and what folks need to know to get started with that. And then we're going to hear from three farmers. This Tam Pirmann from River to River Farm, and Libby and Derek Ervin from Glaciers End. We're also proud to call Libby Paulson. I'm the Executive Director of FoodWorks, and this event today comes kind of in place of what normally we'd be holding an annual meeting of farmers and friends as part of our Southern Illinois Farming Alliance. And the Farming Alliance is a network of sustainable farmers in Southern Illinois. Could call many of them organic or regenerative. We're lucky to have members who were farming regeneratively before that was a buzzword that was out there. So it's just a wonderful network of farmers who are there to help each other and to band together and get the information and resources that we need to thrive here in Southern Illinois. So normally we'd be having an annual meeting. We would get to see each other all in person. We would get to have a wonderful potluck meal, catch up with each other, catch up on FoodWorks, hear from a guest speaker about a important issue, which would have been Molly, as well as our farmer guests. The other thing that we do the really important thing we do is during this meeting is to vote for field day topics for the year. The Farming Alliance hosts field days through the growing season, usually about once a month. We gather typically outdoors on a farm and learn about some aspect of production. And every year we ask farmers and community members to help us figure out, what do you need to know about this year? What are the challenges you're facing, or what are the things you're curious about? And with that, we then go and we bring in speakers, or we find local farmers who are able to speak about those topics, and we have events that are open to the community. You don't have to be a member of the Farming Alliance or of FoodWorks to attend. They're open to everyone. So this year, since we can't vote in person, we've got a virtual survey, and Sarah just put the link for that survey in the chat. If you haven't gotten it yet, please take a couple of minutes to fill it out. It's not long, but help us figure out, what do we need to be focusing on this year. We knew cottage foods was going to be a really important thing, so we went ahead and got started with that today. It's really important, we think, to get this information out now so that folks can get ready for the growing season ahead and think about how cottage foods might work with their farm or with their business. And with that, I want to talk about just a couple of quick things before we get started with our speakers. First, as you probably heard, this meeting is being recorded. We are going to share this link out so that folks who aren't able to attend today can catch up with cottage foods. And of course, if you want to be able to reference it later, that'll be there for you too. So with that, please make sure that your audio is off, just so that we can hear our speakers really well. And last thing I want to say before I turn it over, well, two things, sorry, there's always more things. Two things is that first, we'll be doing questions and answer at the end. We're going to hear from Molly, Tam and Libby and Derek, and then we'll open it up to the group for questions. So please go ahead and put your questions in the chat. And while we're here, if you want to put in your name and where you're tuning in from, that's really great to kind of see who's here today and where they're coming from. So if you want to put your name and maybe your farm or business name, if you have one, and let us know where you're tuning in from in the chat, that'd be great. And then we'll be feeding those answers to our speakers as you know, during our question and answer time. And we're welcome to ask more questions, of course, at that point too. The other thing I want to tell you is stay tuned. We do intend to have our potluck annual meeting, but we're going to push it back until the spring so that we can gather in an open air space outside and have our potluck and enjoy a great meal together. And I think that is a wonderful time for folks to show off their cottage foods also. If you are producing cottage foods, or if you're just experimenting with recipes that might work under cottage foods for a future business, bring those up to the annual meeting, and let's keep the conversation going at that point. So as long as no one tells me I missed anything, I'm going to turn it over to Molly. And she can let you know, she's going to let you know about cottage foods and a little bit about the Illinois Stewardship Alliance and the Home to Market Act. And with that, I am going to pass it off to Molly.
Thanks, Jen. I'm going to go ahead and drop a link in the chat. Hopefully that works. That is a link to the PowerPoint presentation that I'm going to share here. And maybe Sarah, you can allow me to share my screen here. I thought I had that power earlier, but it looks like I do not. There we go. Thank you so much. And just give me 1 second here. Okay, so as Jen said, my name is Molly Pickering. I'm the Deputy Director for Illinois Stewardship Alliance. And today we're going to talk about how you can start a food business from your farm or from your home. So we're going to have a 2-minute overview here of Illinois Stewardship Alliance, and I'm going to go through the laws and how it has changed in recent years. We'll talk 5 minutes at the end about some other legislation that we're working on, and then we'll hear from Libby and Tam, who also helped pass the cottage food legislation as well, and who are both operating very successful cottage food businesses. So to get us started here, Illinois Stewardship Alliance is a statewide nonprofit organization. We are an alliance of farmers and eaters working together to solve problems in the food system. I like to say that we are farmer-driven, eater-powered. So all of the policy that we work on is directly developed by farmers. We have 2 different kind of groups of farmers that we work with. The Soil Health Farmer Caucus is a group of about 80 soil health farmers. So they're more larger commodity grain farmers, but they really care about soil health practices and conservation. And then we also work with a group of farmers called our Local Food Farmer Caucus, another group of about 80 farmers across the state, and they work on policy that is aimed at helping Illinois farmers feed Illinois. And so all of the policies that we work on, they help identify issues, they help research solutions, and then they help determine the policy agenda. And then we work with eaters, people who love to eat like myself, or who love to support local farms, who believe in conservation and food access and climate resilience, to help understand the issues that farmers are facing and take action on policy. And so working together, farmers and eaters together, that's how we are successful in changing policy. So it kind of takes everybody on both sides of the equation there. And with that being said, one of the big pieces of policy that our farmers identified and had been working on for the last couple of years was the Cottage Food Act. And so in 2021, we worked with farmers in the Local Food Farmer Caucus to pass sweeping reforms to cottage food law. And we've partnered with many other folks, the Institute for Justice and Illinois Environmental Council, FoodWorks, and many other partner organizations to also help pass this legislation. There were also a lot of not just farmers that wanted to see the change in the law, but there were also a lot of home bakers. And so we had a really strong alliance of folks working together to help get this passed, or to help get this act passed. But basically, what it does is it aims to standardize cottage food registration procedures across counties, because one of the things we were hearing a lot from folks is like, one county is doing it this way, another county is doing it this way. One county says I can do this, another county says I can do this, or I can't do this. And so we had folks that were selling across county lines, and we really needed to create a standardized registration process so that everybody was on the same page. There was a level playing field across the state. The other thing that the bill did was it expanded sales avenues beyond farmers markets. So many folks may know that when the pandemic hit, we saw that there was just a lot of uncertainty about how farmers markets were going to work. Many of them shifted to online, some of them delayed openings. And when cottage food vendors were only allowed to sell at farmers markets, that they took a real hit to their businesses. There was so much uncertainty. Many of them didn't have a place to sell during that year. And so there was a need to expand sales beyond farmers markets. We had people that, wanted to be able to sell from their home. They wanted to sell from their farm. People wanted to be able to ship across the state. It's hard to run a business in 2020 if you cannot have shipping as part of your business, especially in a pandemic. So these were all things that we wanted to get included in the new law, and we're able to do. And then as part of negotiating the new law with public health stakeholders, we also added a few additional food safety provisions to make sure that these foods that were being made in a home kitchen are safe, and that the public has for sure adequate notice to make an informed decision about whether they want to buy those products or not. All right. So what is a cottage food operation? And I've put in this presentation a lot of the language from the law. So the definition is going to be on the text of the slide, but I'm just going to break it down. It's basically it's a business that you run out of your home kitchen or a kitchen on your farm. So that is the very basic piece of it. And that's important because if you are not able to operate out of your home kitchen, then you have to get a commercial kitchen. And renting a commercial kitchen can be problematic. There's not a lot of them available. And buying or adding a commercial kitchen to your farm can be expensive. So this is a very low cost way for you to kind of start a business from your home with a kitchen that you have, and then either keep that as a hobby business or hopefully grow into a brick and mortar someday if that is your food business dream. Okay, so what can you make under cottage food law? Basically, you can make just about anything except for what is on this list. So we worked really hard to kind of shift the whole paradigm around cottage food to having a small list of things that you could make to then being a small list of things that you could not make. So if it's not on this list on this slide, you can make it. So what things you cannot make? You can't make anything with meat, poultry, seafood, or shellfish, anything with dairy unless it is an ingredient in a non-potentially hazardous baked good. Or you can have it in a candy such as caramel. And this year, we also worked to make sure that you could make buttercream icing. That was something that folks really wanted to see. They couldn't make their cupcakes or their wedding cakes. And so buttercream icing, as long as it doesn't have eggs, that is now allowed in our cottage food as well. But anything else that has dairy in it, cream pies and all these other things that might, yogurts and things, those kinds of things are not allowed. Again, anything with eggs is not allowed. So no omelets, no frittatas, no casseroles. But if you're using eggs as an ingredient in a baked good, then that is allowed. So again, we have no pumpkin pies, sweet potatoes, cheesecakes, custard pies, because those all have dairy in them. You can't do garlic in oil or oil infused with garlic. I'm not sure why, but there's a little bit of extra food safety hazard there. But if you want to make a salad dressing, you can do that because you're adding acid to it. So as long as it's properly acidified, that's fine. It just cannot be that plain garlic in oil. You cannot do low acid canned foods. This means things like canned peaches or canned green beans. If it does not have enough acid in it, it is considered very hazardous because the acid is what is going to kill some of that bacteria that we don't want to see in food, and things that might lead to botulism. So low acid canned foods not allowed, but if you're adding acid to it, so things like pickles or kimchi or things that are going to be naturally very high acid, then those are the kinds of canned foods that you can do. So very specific there, low acid canned foods not allowed, high acid canned foods like pickles, yes, you can do that. And there's going to be a few other safety regulations we'll talk about here in a second. You can't do sprouts. You can't do anything with cut leafy greens. So that means no fresh salads. However, there are some workarounds around that. As long as you have a harvest cut, it doesn't count as a cut. So if you want to make a salad with baby lettuce, essentially, then that would be fine. But if you're chopping, shredding, tearing any kind of green any further, that kind of processing is not allowed. Nothing with cut or pureed fresh tomato or melon, nothing with dehydrated tomato or melon, nothing with frozen cut melon. Melons apparently are a little bit hazardous. Nothing with wild cultivated or wild harvested or non-cultivated mushrooms. Nothing, you cannot do any, you cannot make alcoholic beverages under this act or kombucha. So no home brewing under cottage food law. Okay, to become a cottage food operator, there's just a few things you have to do. The first thing is you are required to register with your local health department. And when you register, your health department will give you like a certificate. And you want to hang on to that certificate because that is your proof that you are a registered cottage food vendor. If somebody inspects you at if they stop at your booth at a farmer's market or they come to your home for some reason, you need that certificate to prove that you are registered with the health department. The second thing, in order to register, you must be a certified food protection manager. So you have to take this test to get your certified food protection manager certificate. The cost, I think, is somewhere between $100 and $200. Your local health department should be able to point you to some places where you can take this test. I believe it's available online, so you can take it online now. As long as you pass that test, then you'll be a certified food protection manager, and then you can register as a cottage food vendor. I think the test is good for, that certificate is good for 5 years. So once you've taken it and paid that $100, $200 fee to take that test, that should hold up for 5 years, and you won't have to take it again for another 5 years. The other thing to know is that you are allowed to have employees under cottage food law, but if you have any employee that is preparing or packaging food in your home with you, then they also have to take the CFPM test. If you just have an employee who's just, I don't know, selling food at the market for you, or helping with, I don't know, social media or marketing or some other type of not food related handling, they don't have to take that test. But if they are anybody who is doing any of the packaging or preparation of food, must take that CFPM. As far as labeling goes, there's some very specific requirements for cottage food. So you have to follow labeling according to the Illinois Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. And that's basically, some of this is pretty basic. So you have the name and city of the cottage food operation, the registration number that your health department will give you. So when you register, they'll give you a number, and you need to put that number on your label. That's how they will track you in case there is any kind of complaint or foodborne illness. They have that registration number, and it's identifiable on your label. You have to have the common name of the food, all ingredients, and there's some, I'll show you an example here of how that should look. You also have to follow allergen labeling. And then you also have to have this very specific phrase that says this product was produced in a home kitchen, not inspected by a health department. They may also process common food allergens. If you have safety concerns, contact your local health department. This is supposed to be prominent on your label. So the idea is not to hide it or bury it anywhere. This is to make sure that your customer knows that you are they are buying a product that was not inspected by a health department. So this gives them kind of that upfront knowledge to make that decision about food safety for themselves. Do they want to purchase it from you? It's really key. This is a really key piece of the cottage food law, is making sure that consumers have that upfront choice and knowledge that this was not in an inspected kitchen. And then of course you need the date and the product, the date the product was processed. So people know that, if it's 2 years old, maybe that's fine if it's hot sauce or something, but people should know when it was processed. And then again, I think I mentioned this already, the allergen labeling has to be on there as well. So here's an example of, I think, a pretty nicely done cottage food label, and you can see it's got everything. The only thing missing here is the registration number, which is a new piece of the law that was added this year. So that would need to be added. And then I think also the prepared by date, I think she just didn't write it in yet, but that is there as well. So you can see it's got the nice, all of the ingredients listed out by weight. She's got the allergen labeling here, so it lets people know up front what kind of allergen might be in this product. And then she's got the warning sign here as well. So I think this is Margie Sawicki maybe who did this one. So well done, Margie, if you're on the call. The other thing is you can, if you like, if you're using local products in your baked goods or your product at all, or local ingredients, you're encouraged to put that it's Illinois grown or Illinois sourced or from an Illinois farm. We're always wanting to make sure that people know that this is cottage food is a great way to support local farms. So if you want to add that to your package because you're using local ingredients, you're highly encouraged to do so. And then there's also a new provision in the law this year that says if your product is difficult to label, you can ask your health department for basically an exemption to putting the label directly on the product. So some things you might imagine, like wedding cakes, are hard to package and hard to put a label on. So this says, work with you have the ability to work with your health department here. If you want to, put things in a case, sometimes, you sell donuts out of a case. You don't want to have to individually package every single one. You can talk to your health department about that. They may grant you some kind of allowance to be able to get that labeling information to people in a different way than specifically on that product. The other piece here is around signage. So not only do you have to have that warning sign on your label, but it also needs to be on a placard at your booth. And it needs to be clear and visible. This is another good example. I think it's about an 8x10 sheet of paper. It's available at the farmer's market booth, so people know up front, again, this was not made in an inspected kitchen. If you're selling things online, you need to have that message at the point of sale, somewhere prominent on your website. If you're selling it from your home, maybe put it on your door, just somewhere where people know that they have that kind of upfront knowledge that they are buying a product that was not inspected. Okay, so the other big piece of the law that changed this year was around sales avenues. So as I mentioned, previously you could only sell at farmers markets. Now you can sell at fairs, festivals, public events, or online. You can sell from your home. You can deliver it directly to a customer, or you can arrange, like a third-party drop-off site. So for a lot of farmers who use CSAs, you can arrange to drop your products off at a CSA drop-off site or something along those lines. And the other thing is you can ship your product. A couple stipulations around shipping. Only foods that are non-potentially hazardous may be shipped. So clearly, if you have a refrigerated item, please don't try to ship that through the mail. And then you also need to make sure that your product, if you're shipping it through the mail, is sealed in a kind of a tamper-proof top. So either like a sticker or a pop top or something, so that people can see that it wasn't tampered with. Okay, there's a few additional conditions to registering. If you are not on a municipal water supply, so if you're on well water, you also have to submit an E. coli test to your local health department to prove that your well water is safe. The test, I think, costs like $30. And your most local health departments will do that test for you. But that is just another thing to keep in mind. That will be a requirement. If you're doing canned tomato products, okay, this is going back to our low acid, high acid kind of provisions here. So if you're doing canned tomato products, you can do these. They're low. Tomato products kind of fall in that line between low acid and high acid. So in order to kind of demonstrate that you are using a recipe that's properly acidified, you have two options. You can either A, follow an approved recipe from the United States Department of Agriculture or Extension. And we're putting together some resources right now that will help people find these approved recipes. But if you look up like USDA home canning website, type that into Google, you'll be able to find they'll have a list of resources and a list of recipes that should pop up. So if you are using one of those recipes, that recipe has been tested by the USDA or by an extension office. So we know it's safe. So that's fine. You can use that. You just have to show that you're using an approved recipe to your local health department when you're registering. Now, if you want to do your own type of, you want to come up with your own secret, recipe, or you have your own, your grandma's recipe that you want to start canning and selling at the farmer's market, something that has not been tested, you have another option. So you need to submit the recipe to a laboratory to get that pH test, and to make that pH test will serve as proof that as evidence that your product is, at the end result, is safe. So I believe you just need to send the recipe, but maybe we'll talk to Libby or Tam later about how they do that. I think you just need to send the recipe, and then your lab should be able to make that recipe and try it out and see if it meets the pH testing requirements. The lab testing should cost somewhere between $15 and $50. So if you get charged more than $50 from a lab, that lab doesn't know what they're trying to charge you for a different kind of test than what you need. You just need a simple pH test, and it's not super expensive. And again, we're working on some resources. We should have a list of labs coming out hopefully by March. We'll have a new updated cottage food guide with a list of resources for labs and for these types of recipes, approved recipes. So it's kind of the same thing with the acidified and fermented foods. So these are things like pickles and kimchi and all of those types of products. So again, if you are using an approved recipe, that's great. Just turn that in, with the source to your local health department. If you're making your own thing, again, you got your own secret hot sauce, you got your own, your own family pickle recipe, and it's not an approved recipe, then you have to take a different step. And you have to write a food safety plan, and for each category of product that uses the same procedures. So this is a little tricky to explain, so bear with me, but we did it this way. We wrote it into the law this way because we didn't want to require pH testing for every single product that you might make, because some, as you can see from that kind of row of hot sauces in the background, we have some folks that are making maybe like 20, 30, 40 different types of pickled products and hot sauces throughout the year. They're using seasonal ingredients. They're switching up their recipe all the time. So requiring a pH test for every single recipe would have been really cost prohibitive. So instead of requiring a pH test for every recipe, we instead are requiring a food safety plan. Now, the food safety plan, it covers like one category of food. So if you're doing pickles and kimchi, you need a food safety plan for all your pickles, and then you need a food safety plans for all your kimchis. If you're doing, I don't know, what's another one? Hot sauce. then you need a separate food safety plan for all your hot sauces. So you might have 5 different types of hot sauces, but you only need one food safety plan because they're all following the same basic procedure. The food safety plan also, as part of that, you have to get one of those recipes pH tested. So again, if you had 5 hot sauces, you have to get one of them pH tested as kind of evidence that your process is safe. But you won't have to do that again for another 3 years. So, but every year you have to turn in that, I think every year you have to turn in that food safety plan. The food safety plan, we'll go over that at the end as well, so you can kind of take a look at what that looks like. A couple things about packaging here. They have to be, if you're canning them, they have to be processed in a boiling water bath with a tight fitting lid. If you are not canning them, because some products are hard to can, like a hot sauce, some of those, you know, they're in different shaped bottles, they're hard to can. So if you don't want to go through the canning process, you must put them in a product that, or some, I would also say some products you don't want to can, like your fermented foods, because you're going to kill all the natural, you know, gut bacteria that you really want to keep in there. So if you don't want to can it, you can also just put it in a clean glass container that seals properly, and you have to make sure that you can store it at 41 degrees or below, because that's going to, you know, be the piece that keeps the food safe and keeps it from the bacteria from growing. So if you're not going to sterilize it or can it, kill that bacteria through the canning process, the boiling water bath canning process, you need to make sure that you can keep your product at 41 degrees or below. I just need to plug in my computer real quick. 1 second. Okay. The last thing here is around cheesy bread. So if you're going to make something with cheese on top of it, you can do that. That's fine. I know we said dairy wasn't allowed, but this is like one exception here. If you want to, you know, do something like this focaccia with cheese on the top of it, you can do it. You just have to submit a pH test again to make sure that that product is safe. Okay, registration process. So when you're registering, you have to fill out a couple things. You're gonna have to fill out a registration form. You're most likely gonna have to fill out a home self-certification checklist. And then if you are doing acidified and fermented foods, you're gonna also have to fill out that food safety plan. The fee also is gonna be somewhere between $0 and $50. I think most counties are charging $50, but it's capped at that. So it should never be above $50 to register with your health department. And I want to see if I can pull up the registration form here. Okay, cool. So for the last 9 months, really, IDPH, the Illinois Department of Public Health, has been working with Illinois Stewardship Alliance and a broad stakeholder group of local health departments and other organizations that support cottage food to come up with what the registration form should look like. And together, this is what we came up with. Your health department, if they don't have this yet, I will send this out I can send this out to everybody who wants it. You can share this with your health department. There has been a little bit of lag between, you know, the law just went into effect in January. There's been a little bit of lag with health departments kind of getting up to speed on the law, getting the documents that they need. So please be patient with your health department. If they don't have all the documentation that they need right now to register you, definitely reach back out to me. I'll get you what you need. You can share it with your health department. I'll also get a letter from IDPH that you can share with your health department. So that you have a letter as well as a leg to stand on with them to say, hey, this is what you need. But anyways, here's just a little bit of the registration form. You're going to have to put in your personal contact information, your business contact information. Yeah.
Molly, I would let you know, I don't think we're seeing the registration form. We still see the slide.
Yeah, sorry. Let me change my screen view. I probably. Can you see it now?
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. So you're gonna need to put in your personal contact information, your business contact information, your food service protection manager certificate number. So that's proof that you've taken that class. Let me see if I can scroll down here. You'll have to check off the types of products that you make. So just kind of a checklist there, and your item's not on the list. You have a kind of write it option. You're going to have to check off how you're planning to sell your food. And then if you're shipping, you need to describe how you will seal your product in a manner that reveals that tamper-proof, that tamper-proof kind of labeling. There's also a place to talk about how you're going to do your signage, whether it's going to be a booth, a placard at your booth, whether it's going to be like a 8x10 sign on at your pickup location, something on your website or something else. But you need to let health departments know how you plan to do that. There's a section just basically about making sure that you have that warning sign on there, and the opportunity to request a packaging exemption if you need that for your wedding cakes or your donuts or whatever it might be. There's a section on employees. So again, every employee that packages or prepares food needs a CFPM. And then this is basically a checklist of all the attachments you plan to provide. So your CFPM, your product label. So you need a product label for each category to turn in with this registration form, so they can make sure that it's, it meets all the criteria that we just talked about. You will need the results from the water test if you're on a well. And then if you are doing acidified foods or fermented foods or canned tomato products, you also need to turn in that food safety plan or pH testing. And then your $50 cash or check. So that is basically what that's basically what this should look like. Every county might vary just a little bit differently, but the questions will be more or less the same. These are going to be the questions that you're going to be asked. And then let me get the other one up here too. We'll go through the home self-certification checklist as well. Let's see, can you guys see this? Do I need to change the screen again? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so the home self-certification checklist. This is basically just a checklist to say that you follow basic food safety procedures. And so it just goes through kind of a list of how you should be operating in a home kitchen and what kind of the standards are for working in a home kitchen. And you just verify that you are doing these things. So just real quickly, you're in a private dwelling. You're not in a commercial kitchen. What's the next one here? You have an appropriately designed kitchen. Your sleeping quarters are not part of your kitchen. Your sink is not, you have a sink in the kitchen, and also a sink in your toilet room or your bathroom. So kind of basic things there. You're going to have to verify that you keep your kitchen equipment and utensils all maintained clean and in good shape. You are going to have to verify that you wash, rinse, and sanitize everything before each use, that you maintain your storage area for your rodents and insects, that if you have chemicals, including pesticides in your home, that they're not stored in the same area as your cottage food products. Let's see, you have to verify that you use proper hand washing before and after going to the bathroom and throughout the preparation process, that your employees will also follow proper hand washing, that you're using liquid soap, paper towels, and warm water, that you have potable water. You have to make sure that everybody is that's preparing food is not using their bare hands, but it's using tongs or self-service gloves or things like of those nature or of that nature. Also, while you are preparing or packaging things in your home kitchen, pets are not allowed in the kitchen, smoking is not allowed, and you're not allowed to eat while you are doing that. So those are all kind of basic food safety things. You know, those things can happen when you're not preparing and packaging stuff, but when you are operating as a cottage food business, those things need to not be happening in your home kitchen. It says, I will make every effort to separate domestic activities such as meal preparation, clothes washing, ironing, all those kinds of things from the time frame that you are in your home kitchen and preparing your food. Again, just trying to separate home and business. Let's see, you are not, verify that you're not sick while you're making your products, or that none of your employees are sick, that you don't have, you know, bandages, that your hair is restrained, it's tied back, it's not going to end up in the food. And then you also need to verify that if you are transporting food, that you can do so safely. You're keeping your chilled products at the right temperatures. If you have chilled products like those fermented foods we talked about earlier, or if you have anything that's frozen, maybe you made a frozen soup, that you're keeping that at the right temperature. So just kind of basic food safety standards that you will certify that you are following when you turn this into your health department. All right. And then let's see, I'm gonna get to the last one, which is the food safety plan. Sorry guys, taking me just a second to flip back between screens. Can you see this now? Oh, it looks like the same one. I might not have linked it properly. I might have to come back to that one at the end if you're curious about the food safety plan. Okay. Okay, can you see, I'm back on the PowerPoint screen again. Can you see the PowerPoint? Okay, great. Okay, so just a couple other things to go back through here. As part of cottage food law, you are not inspected by your health department. That is why the fees are so low, but that is also why you have to have that, you know, warning label on your products. There are some scenarios when your health department may inspect you. So if they receive a consumer complaint, if there's a foodborne illness outbreak, if another health department notifies them and says you need to look into these guys, or if your health department has any reason to believe that your products are not following, you know, the criteria that's laid out, or there's some kind of imminent health hazard, they may come inspect your home. And they're allowed to do so under the law, and they may also charge you an inspection fee, and that inspection fee is up to them. So just know that if there's any of those kinds of complaints, mostly around food safety, that you may be inspected and you may be charged a fee. The other thing to know, like I said, this new law standardizes regulations across counties, even in home rule counties. So those are municipalities. So the city of Chicago and all of the larger municipalities that have capacity to kind of overrule the state law, this specifically prevents them from doing that. So everybody across the state has to follow the same regulations and register cottage food producers according to these same regulations that I just laid out. And then just a quick note on exemptions. If you are having like, religious, charitable, nonprofit bake sale, you don't have to register as a cottage food vendor. Those kinds of, there's an exemption for you under the law. So you're doing like a one-off bake sale, you don't have to register as a cottage food producer. If you are doing this regularly to make money as a business, then yes, you need to register. And then this law went into effect on January 1st, 2022. So you should be able to register with your local health department now. Again, as I mentioned, there's a little bit of lag time, so please have some grace with your health departments as they try to navigate this new law, get things up and running on their end. I'm happy to share any of the documents that I just showed you, so that you can share that with your health department if they are not, if they have questions or are not registering you yet. Just one other note here, there's also no sales cap on cottage food vendors. There's a couple questions on that a while ago, and so that was removed several years ago. There's no cap on your sales as a cottage food vendor. So a couple ways to get further involved or ask further questions about cottage food. I encourage you to join the Alliance e-newsletter list. We have a list of cottage food producers, and we email them not regularly, but just when there's new news. So that's a great place to get the latest update on what's happening with the law. I will be emailing that documentation that I just shared out with you today to that whole newsletter list. So that's another great way to kind of get up to speed on cottage food law. You can also join the cottage food Facebook group. This is a great Facebook group where people are constantly asking questions, getting answers. It's a great little community of cottage food producers that are supporting each other. So definitely give that check that out. And then if you're interested in working on more laws like this, if you're having future, more problems with cottage food, you keep running into a barrier, you want to see something else changed in the regulations, maybe it's not in cottage food, maybe it's around scaling up, maybe you're trying to jump to the next level, your commercial kitchen or something along those lines, I'd encourage you to get involved with the local food farmer caucus. Again, as I mentioned, this is where we do all of our policy work. This is where our policy comes from. So if you're experiencing any kind of issues, that's the place to be. That's where we can start working with more folks, getting more folks on the ground involved in changing regulations to support small farms and food businesses. Okay, we're done with cottage food stuff, but I want to tell you a little bit more about what we're working on now. So farmers in our caucuses just approved a 2022 policy agenda. And this year they voted to work on issues to support farm to school. So we're working on a piece of legislation that is going to remove the lowest price bid requirement that prevents schools from being able to source food that's higher quality, that might be coming from local farms, because right now they always have to choose the lowest price bid if they bid over a certain amount. So if we can remove that lowest price bid barrier, then that will be a great step in the right direction to helping schools source more local produce. The other piece is the primary issue is building climate resilience. So we're working on something called the Partners for Nutrient Loss Reduction, which will help state agencies work more strategically on making sure that all of the conservation practices that are happening in Illinois are actually strategically moving us towards our goals of building climate resilience and reducing nutrient runoff that's going into the waterways of Illinois. Sorry, get it talking a lot. Okay, so our secondary issue is supporting small farm livelihood and farmers markets. If you're a farmer that has tried to sell across county lines, and in farmers markets across county lines, you're doing meat, eggs, and dairy, you might have noticed it's a little challenging. The regulations are different in every county. You have to pay that fee in every county that you want to vend. So we're trying to, kind of like cottage food, we're trying to standardize the regulations across county lines and create one set of very scale appropriate regulations for farmers who are selling meat, eggs, dairy, and refrigerated products at farmers markets. Make that simpler and easier for them, and also make sure that the fees are scale appropriate for those farmers, because right now many of them have to pay the same fees as a restaurant or retailer, follow the same regulations as a restaurant and retailer, and those are just often not scale appropriate. And then also on the agenda is celebrating Illinois' most valuable natural resource, our soil. So we're trying to create a week-long celebration called Soil Health Week and Day. It will be on March 7th through 11th this year, I believe. So we'll have a lot of information coming out soon about how you can participate in some great speakers and conservation, kind of just like learning opportunities about conservation and soil in Illinois. And then we also on our agenda this year is support addressing racial equity in agriculture. And these are multi-year issues. We know that one's going to take a little bit longer. And then we're always working on shifting state procurement to be able to source more local food and defending conservation funding. So those are kind of our main priorities for this year. Really excited about them. And I definitely encourage you to stay involved and check those out and check back with us about how you can take action on some of those issues. And I think that is the end of my show. So I think we have Libby and Tam coming up next.
Yeah, thank you, Molly. And I want to remind folks, if you have questions, put them in the chat because we'll be talking about all of those in a couple of minutes. So our next two speakers are on the farmer cottage foods producer side of things. So we have Tam Pirmann from River to River Farm and Libby and Derek Ervin from Glaciers End. So just to give you just a little bit of background, Pam in River to River Farm is a small diversified. They do products, both goat's milk and honey soaps, loofahs, as well as vegetables, and they're very well known in Southern Illinois for their fresh baby turmeric and ginger. I know I personally buy like a bucket of the stuff every year because it's just so good. And then our other, Libby and Derek are of Glaciers End. They are a small farm in Johnson City and as well as Orchard. And Derek and Libby relocated from Chicago down to the family farm, and they're doing a variety of value-added products, fruit butters, jams, jellies, preserves, syrups, and shrubs. And they're doing all kinds of hot sauces too. I'm seeing a lot of their hot sauces lately. And Derek and Libby, you may have seen them around at farmers markets, but you also may have heard they in 2022 last year were named the first local food change makers by the Illinois Stewardship Alliance for the work that they have done on cottage foods law. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tam and Libby and Derek. And we thought what would be good would be to just hear a little bit about your farm. If you could tell us a little bit about your farms, your cottage food businesses, and how does cottage foods and how does this new legislation, influence your business? So Tam, do you want to start off? And I want to remind folks, put your questions in the chat. Sarah and I will be giving those to our speakers after they have a chance to talk for a little bit.
Okay, I'm Tam Pirmann from River to River Farm. We grow, like Jennifer said, we grow a variety of produce with our main crop being ginger and turmeric. And so a lot of our value-added products that fall under the cottage food include products that we make with our ginger and turmeric. We also grow corn and have a mill at the farm. So we grind our own cornmeal. And then we have a pasta business as well. So we make extruded pasta with a lot of the products that we actually grow in our greenhouse. So some of the examples of some of the cottage food products that we make are ground cornmeal, and then I do a cornbread mix, cornbread Johnny cake mix. We also do a pancake mix, and that includes the ginger. It's a gingerbread pancake mix. So those are some of the grains. We make granola, homemade granola, which again has ginger and turmeric in it. We do candied ginger. I make a triple ginger cookies. And then some of the, those are all non-hazardous items that we make. So none of that would fall under the requirement of having a hazardous food plan. But then we do a lot of peppers, and from that we make jalapeno pepper jelly, pepper relishes, and then some jams and jellies. I do a lemon ginger marmalade. Those kinds of items, will require the hazardous food plan. But the recipes that I use come from the Ball Jar book, and I'm still waiting to get this in writing, but the extension office has told me that the Ball Jar recipes, if the recipes come from after 1980, are USDA approved. So those are the recipes that I'm using. So I won't need to have mine tested because I'll submit those recipes as approved recipes already. Couple of the other things we make we do some herbs and spices. So we dry a lot of our herbs, and then we make paprika from our dried peppers. We grind the ginger and turmeric. We grind garlic. We make curry and jerk seasoning as well. And then also adobe seasonings and things like that. Again, those are all non-hazardous, so those won't require that. Then the pasta business, that too is a non-hazardous food item, and we use a lot of the herbs that we grow in the pasta that we make. So that's just kind of an overview of our cottage food products. The change in the law is what I'm doing right now is I'm revamping some of my labeling. We're going to have to tweak the cottage food statement, make some changes in some of the labeling that we have so that we can submit all of that with the new application. The other thing that's going to be really great for us is that we can increase sales at places other than the farmer's market. We sell most of our products at, exclusively right now through Leaf Food Hub, which is an online farmer's market, which has been a great source for us for sales. And this new law is going to allow us to attend some other festivals. The Vulture Festival. I mean, there's just a whole bunch of festivals that we're lining up for this next year that we'll be able to sell some of our products at them. So everything's a work in progress, and we're tweaking as we go to meet the new laws.
Okay, we're up. So hi, we're Libby and Derek. Thank you for everybody for coming out. So we, as Jennifer said, we moved here from Chicago and took the Farm Beginnings class. And that's where we first met Molly, was at a cottage food field day. When we moved here, we planted an orchard. We eventually want to have a cidery and some other things. And that takes about 4 to 5 years to start to get things going. So we were looking kind of around our farm, figuring out what's some ways we can make some income right now. And then it was just looking literally around our farm. What do we have? What can we use? And then, we have several gardens that we grow vegetables as well to supplement. And Derek will talk in a minute about our products. But we, as Molly said, working on this bill. Derek has been meeting weekly, working on the language. I spoke virtually in front of the Senate to advocate for it. So it's something, we're very passionate about for ourselves, but also for the community. One thing that we're seeing is as we grow, we can only produce so much. So it's really helping us to go out and source from local farmers and to help them as well, to give them another revenue and source of income. And I'll let Derek kind of talk about our products.
So our farm, I consider us a specialty crop / value add farm. So, we grow niche, what I would call niche products or produce, like elderberry, and we grow super hot peppers. And then we also source a lot of stuff that is native to our property, and what I would like to call feral farming. It's not quite, I don't feel like we're out foraging, but we're actually kind of guiding the natural produce that grows on our property into a direction that we want it to go. So we use a lot of honeysuckle, we use a lot of sumac, and we use a lot of wild blackberry, all of which we kind of cultivate, or we're in the process of helping along and cultivating and make sure that it survives and does well in certain places, and maybe in the case of honeysuckle, maybe not so well in other places. So we take these products and then we value add to them. So instead of taking 3 cucumbers and selling them at the farmer's market for maybe $1.50 or $2, we'll take that, we'll turn it into a jar of pickles and sell that for $10. So you need a little bit of imagination and a little bit of elbow grease and a lot of time, but you can take, for us, you take we have a very small operation. You can take that, a small operation, and make it profitable with that, and with a little bit of ingenuity. The beauty of the new law for us is it opened up the ability to work at fairs, or to sell at fairs and festivals and online, like we've been talking about and discussing. We were doing that before, but we were going to a commercial kitchen, and which sounds like, oh, that's okay, that's pretty easy, you just go to a commercial kitchen. Well, that's not that easy, because one, you have to, in most cases, you have to rent that space. 2, you have to bring all of your equipment that you use that they don't have there. In fact, then you have to bring all of the produce that you're going to use there. You have to bring all of your jars. You have to bring all of the stuff that you use at your home to a place, and then you may only have a few hours to do it. So the ability to sell it at the festivals and everything, and with the cottage food, from making it from our house, was pretty much a game changer for us. The fairs and festivals are great because you get a bigger money hit. You get a larger amount of money at one time. Farmers markets are awesome. They're steady. They're great. They go throughout the year pretty much, but occasionally it's nice to just put in a bunch of extra effort, a bunch of extra work, make a bunch of extra product, and go and hit a fair or festival where you bring a big nest egg home. And that's been a game changer for us, for sure, throughout the last year.
Also with the new law, the online shipping that we can do statewide, because we relocated from Chicago, we have friends and family up there. We did the state fair this summer. We have people in Springfield that want our stuff. So this really allows us to expand our reach for our customer base. And in talking about kind of with the new law and products, so clearly we don't really use approved recipes. My husband gets very creative with what he can. So we've had to submit pretty much one of everything that we have that's acidified. And I know that was one of the questions in talking about it. When you're looking at these different places to submit your items to, the 2 that we reached out to, we actually had to submit a product, and they have like a minimum requirement of how much the product you have to submit. And they also have a minimum on the orders, the number of products you can get tested. So the place we went, I think it was maybe $75. So we submitted, like, they were $15 a piece, and we submitted, I think, 5 or 6, whatever that number is. But it took, 3 days. We got a letter back, and we can take that to our health department. The one thing I will say about that too is when we were reaching out to these places, they were telling us that we needed a process authority letter. And I actually reached out to Molly, because it's like $150 for that. And you do not need that. That's if you're going to be going wholesale, getting that wholesale license. So all we had to get was a pH test for our products. And again, we have a letter that I believe it's maybe good for like 3 years for these products, that we can show people where our pH level We also got a pH meter for ourselves. Derek has done that from kind of day one, where we can test our own pH levels. So we know just internally that we're keeping the stuff where we want it to be shelf stable.
That was, as far as cottage food makers, if you're making acidified foods, I highly recommend you get some nice equipment, especially a pH meter, because it was nice to be able, when we got our products back, the tests, we were nailing everything that we had, the pHs that we had measured before we hit them right where they were. So it's just peace of mind when you're making your own recipes and stuff like that, to know that you're giving safe food out to people.
And then the last thing I'll kind of say is, and I know we've talked about it several times, but if you guys aren't involved with the Stewardship Alliance, I can't recommend them enough. They've been helpful for us every step of the way. I mean, Molly presenting at a field day for us at FoodWorks is what started us on this path. And it's become our business, and now it's our farm and it's our life. But they're great advocates for farmers, for eaters, for growers. So if you guys aren't already involved, I definitely recommend getting involved.
I don't think there's one thing that we make right now that would have been allowed in the very first cottage food law it changed the year we started making it, and I didn't realize it. And I was reading the old one, and then I was just like, oh my God, like, we can only make so much apple butter. And so it's just fantastic, the work they've done, and it just continues to grow each year. And each time they focus on something, they get the job done.
I'm going to piggyback on that and say I've also been really excited to see the number of farmers and advocates from Southern Illinois who joined in to help make this happen. The folks who are working with ISA on their organizing efforts or wherever else. It's just been wonderful to see those Southern Illinois voices in that statewide conversation. So thank you to all of you who have been doing that work.
I'll just say also FoodWorks and the farmers here, farmers from Southern Illinois, were really key in making sure that cottage food law really served farmers and making sure it got passed. There was a lot of stiff opposition. So without the farmers here on this call, it wouldn't have got passed. So they did really great work.
So we have a couple of questions in the chat. And folks, feel free to add any other questions. And I can kind of start way back. We may have answered this along the way, but Alex and Janelle are asking, is there a system or tool that could enter a recipe where you could enter a recipe and evaluate if it's permissible? And I think you mentioned something, but could you mention that again? I think Molly, did you mention
there's no tool like that where you could just pop it in and then it would spit out back whether it's permitted or not. That'd be great. But no, you have to look online. I dropped in a link in the chat for the National Center for Home Food Preservation. There's a lot of recipes listed on that website. So that's definitely a good starting point as a place to look. And then I think you can also check with your individual extension offices as well. They'll also have some approved and tested recipes. So look to your local extension office. I know I saw Allie Braunwyn on here earlier, but those folks should also be able to point you in the right direction for approved recipes.
Can I jump in right here real quick? Of course. If you're interested in making cottage food, read the bill. Read it several times. Read it 5-6 times. It's not as complicated as it seems, and you'll be way more comfortable when you realize what you can and can't do. It's just worth reading it 3 or 4 times and just putting it to heart.
Mm-hmm. On that note, we are working on a cottage food guide as well to help people more easily kind of break down the legalese of the law and understand exactly what you need. So look for that coming out in March. Again, like join that newsletter list. We'll keep you updated on when that's coming out. But it will also include some more information about like getting insurance for your products, getting your tax ID, kind of some of that more business related types of information as well for getting your business set up, in addition to also learning how to navigate the cottage food law.
Mhm. All right. We have a couple questions coming in. I may have missed one along the way, so I'll have to go back and look, but here we go. Any plans to tackle some of the limitations around honey? For example, as a beekeeper, I know I can sell honey under a different law, but my local health department doesn't approve products with honey, such as flavored honey or syrups, because of the honey law.
Interesting. Okay. I'm gonna have to do some digging on that because honey is not on the banned list. And because it is not on the list of things that are banned under cottage food, it should be allowed. You should be able to do those things under cottage food law. So let me just circle back with IDPH, and maybe we can get some guidance from IDPH to give to your health department around how honey should be treated. But for like straight up legal purposes, like legal interpretation, it should be allowed. So definitely follow back up with me via email and we'll talk more about it.
We have a couple clarifying questions, probably for Molly in your wheelhouse. Earlier, Rachel asked, to be clear, the safety plan is for if I am not following a USDA or extension recipe.
Yes, and only if you are doing acidified and fermented foods. So again, only for those fermented products or those pickles or hot sauces, those other those kinds of products. You don't have to do a food safety plan for baked goods, just for acidified and fermented foods that don't follow an approved recipe.
Great. And the other clarifying question, the required statement for products needs to be updated and is different than the current one, correct?
Can you repeat that question? The required.
Yeah. Just to clarify, the required statement for labeling products needs to be updated.
Yes.
Correct?
Yep. It's got like one additional line on it. So yeah, it needs to be updated.
And here's another one. If this comes from Holly Todd, if using off-shelf certified organic ingredients in value-added cottage food product, can you list it as an organic ingredient in the labeling?
Yes.
Great. Good. But I have a question related to that though. If your farm is certified organic, and you're using your own farm grown products in your cottage food, you can then call it organic as well, correct?
Yep.
But you must be certified or USDA certified organic to do that.
Yes, unless your farm is making under $25,000 a year, then you can use the organic label. If you have like less than $25,000 in sales per year. So not even making, I think it's $25,000 in sales. I'm pretty sure that's right. I need to double check that, but I'm pretty sure. And if you have less than $25,000 in sales, you can say organic, but anything above that, you have to be certified organic.
If I'm not mistaken, and Jill will know the answer to this because I believe she was the one who told me, if a certain percentage of your produce that you use in a product is organic, you can label it organic. I forget what that percentage is, but if I'm not mistaken, it does not have to be 100% organic.
Yeah, so it sounds like we might have to dig into the organic labeling regulations a little bit. I wouldn't know that either, so that's good to know, Derek.
I think that $25,000 point though is a really important thing to remember, especially if you're just starting out. or if you want to maintain a small business,
Ye-
that might be really good for someone to kind of fly under that that cap.
Yeah, I think the idea was, folks that are selling less than $25,000 a year, for them, the process of going through the getting a certified organic certification is like really hard and cumbersome and probably not worth your while if you're doing under $25,000 in sales. So it's meant to help out those people that are not quite, they're still growing, I guess.
Yeah. Okay, I'm not seeing any more questions in the chat. Correct me if I'm wrong, folks. I'm sorry if I have missed any. But I have kind of one last question myself, and that's really really kind of for our panelists, but also and Molly and also our whole group, is what kind of interesting things are you guys seeing being made under Cottage Foods? Because I know there are some interesting businesses along the way. And I'm also curious from our participants here, if anyone has questions on what could be made, if you're thinking, hey, is this thing I'm thinking about going to work under the law? Let us know, or what interesting things are you seeing? So I want to hear from Molly and Pam and Libby and Derek, and I want to hear from everybody else because you all are out there. What's interesting?
Tell you what I'm not seeing and is allowed, and there's a huge market for it, I believe, is prepared foods. I see a lot of people bringing jams and jellies and that kind of thing, but there's a lot of things that are allowed that are not being utilized. And there's huge hole, especially in today's market where people like getting a package in the mail that has everything ready to go and you throw it in a skillet. Well, they also like to go to a farmer's market and take something home and throw it in a skillet. You could have things prepared and frozen. You could have all kinds of different ways of doing it. You could have things that you just you have everything grouped together and you take it home, you put it in a pot or whatever. But I don't see a lot of it. I would love to do it, but I can't do everything. And so we kind of picked our lane, but man, it's right there for the taking.
Mm-hmm. I 100% agree with that. I always think, when you go to the grocery store now, they have all those pre-chopped vegetables and butternut squash noodles and stuff. I'm like, God, somebody just do that with local produce so I can buy it. So please, somebody do that. So I did have a weird request, or somebody asking a weird question. This is several months ago, but somebody wanted to do dried seaweed. So it's like, oh, okay. It's not allowed, so you can do it. So I think they wanted to do kelp chips or something along those lines. So I thought that was interesting. I get people, asking about empanadas, vegan empanadas, was one that sounded really good. Somebody asked about recently. Those are the two that come off the top of my head right now.
One of the things that we've toyed around with too, and discussed with a number of other people, was just frozen vegetables, frozen green beans, chopped carrots. I know tomatoes would not be allowed under that because tomatoes are, for whatever reason, the scary fruit. But I think, packaged frozen veggies would be another good place to go.
Absolutely. And then Kara's asking about dehydrated or freeze-dried foods. Yep, they are allowed. They are definitely allowed. I know people are doing things like apple chips and other kinds of freeze-dried and dehydrated foods. So we'd love to see more of that too.
I know one more thing that just popped in my head, and I know that Funk's Grove does this up in Central Illinois, they call them fruit wowzers. It's fruit leather.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, they make it's like fruit roll-ups out of their fruit leather. It's pretty cool.
Oh, Holly Todd is saying she's planning on doing local honey sweetened chocolate and fruit leather. Sounds delicious.
Sounds great.
We had another question come in. Is cream cheese frosting allowed for carrot cakes now?
No, it's not. I'm sorry. We had a hard enough time just getting buttercream in there. So maybe another year, but you can get the cream cheese, but just buttercream at this moment.
Well, does anyone have any other interesting foods that come to mind or questions for our panelists? Oh, here we go. Try browning the butter for extra depth of flavor. Oh, that sounds good. Alex and Janelle, you're going to need to start cooking. All right. Well, I want to thank one more time. I just want to thank everybody for coming. They say that's why they're here. I want to thank everyone for coming and thank our panelists so much. Like I said, we're really kind of, I'm just wowed in Southern Illinois, some of the things that people are doing and the way that folks are leading the charge in Illinois. It's so cool. And to have, and thank you to Molly for coming and sharing your expertise with us again. She did it a few years ago, and we saw it started Derek and Libby's path, or started them down this path. And I'm curious, today with this, another installment, where we're going to head from here. So I hope to see you all at the farmers markets, or to see, be able to buy your products online now that we can do that. And I want to thank you all again for coming. Stay tuned, folks. We are going to figure out where we can hold our annual meeting this spring. We hope to see you all there in person. We will make sure that we get you the details on that when we have that settled. And if I'm not forgetting anything, calling once, twice. All right. Thank you, folks. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Bye, everybody.
See you guys.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you, Molly.
Thanks, guys. It's good to see you all.